Hello everyone. I mentioned in a recent video that I was going to attempt to identify the political persuasion of sovereign citizens. Usually this would mean some kind of left or right designation, but I think sovereign citizenship is more of a north-south designation than an east-west one. What I mean by that is that on a basic political compass, west is left, right is east, authoritarian is north, and libertarian is south. I believe that the sovereign citizen movement has its origins in, or at least got a big shot in the arm as a result of the Waco, Texas Branch Davidian David Koresh siege back in 1993. It seemed to start out as a right-wing movement of, let's say, God, guns and country, good old boy whites, favouring their answer only to God, not the government paradigm, which is why I say it started out on the right. I have a viewer, James Melton, whose comments I read only after writing up this part of the monologue, that really knows where it started. He made another great observation, and I'll come to that later. But what he didn't expand on is where we are now some 30 years later, and it has metastasised into the societal cancer we see today, taken up by anyone looking for an excuse to dodge responsibility and accountability for their actions. Getting back to the compass though, I think it's pretty clear that these people are way south on the compass. That is to say that they're libertarians. The problem is, of course, that they're libertarians to such an excessive extreme that they're actually anarchists. But unfortunately, too stupid, too narcissistic, too adult toddler to realise it. Asmongold does a few copcam videos, and I think he has one of the most appropriate descriptions for sovereign citizen narcissistic types. He refers to them as adult toddlers, requiring adult daycare, and that police body cams have been a godsend in showing how these people really behave, from the moment they're pulled over to how they behave in court, and what a pack of insolent babies they really are. So let's have a look at some sovereign citizen stock standard arguments and see if they hold any water. Before getting into that though, I was demonetised by YouTube a long time ago, so I make nothing from content creation these days other than viewer support. If you'd like to support what I do and help keep me going, a small donation via PayPal or even clicking the recurring payment option of a couple of dollars a month would help me out so much. You can also consider joining up to either Patreon or Subscribestar rather than using PayPal. If you join me on either of those platforms, you'll get access to Gary Orsum songs for download that have never appeared on my video channels. So if you use those platforms, you're not just giving to me, I'm giving something back to you in exchange. Links are in the description below to take you straight there. Also, please hit like and leave a comment, and if you're not subscribed, please do so and switch on the bell for notifications. All those things cost nothing. Now back to the video. The first question for these sovereign citizen adult toddlers is, do we need laws? If you answered no, then you are indeed an anarchist, and no one should take you seriously for a minute, as anarchy is simply not a viable option for a functional and just society. Sure, without laws, the sovereign citizen is released from the societal obligation to not harm others, as is their want, but in return it releases normal people from the obligation to not harm the sovereign citizen. So is that what you sovtards actually want? For people to be able to hurt or even kill you and your family, and for there to be no laws to hold said perpetrator accountable? Because that seems to be where you're going. Or is it you just want for you to not be accountable, but for others to still be accountable? I mean, let's take Mr. Drug Dealer from the last video, for example. He's forced to admit that he wants special treatment just for him, and yet low IQ half-wits come onto my channel and take exception to me referring to sovereign citizens as narcissists, when that's precisely the mindset they're demonstrating when they want special treatment just for them. He admits it himself when he's compelled or cornered to tell the truth.
What you're suggesting to me is that I shouldn't do that. What you're suggesting to me is that I should, for your specific case only, have some special rules and allow you to somehow opt out of your given name, opt out of the processes and procedures of this court, and allow you to proceed as your own sovereign or something of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Correct. Right. And we can't have that.
We can analogize this adult toddler mindset in the following way. When you're a child, there needs to be someone to exercise authority. That's obvious, yeah? Even as a sovtard, you'd agree with that, yeah? When you're a child, that someone is usually your parents. When you're an adult, there still needs to be someone to exercise authority, because it's obvious to anyone that isn't a moron that people can't just go around doing whatever the fuck they like. When you're an adult, or perhaps I should say of legal age at least, that someone is law enforcement and the judicial system. Once you come of age, you're not subject to your parents' authority anymore. You're now subject to societal authority. And the manifestation of that societal authority is, as I stated, law enforcement and the judicial system. Lack of respect for law enforcement and the judicial system is akin to lack of respect for your parents, and subsequently subject to punishment and or loss of privileges in the same way. Let's not bullshit around here. You're in court because in all likelihood you've actually done what you're being accused of. Jail or whatever sentence you receive is akin to you being sent to your room or the naughty corner for being naughty. But here's the thing, the sovereign citizen argument isn't, I didn't steal the cookies. The sovereign citizen argument is, I decided unilaterally that you're not my parents and therefore have no authority over me. Ergo, I can steal all the cookies I want. That's what the sovereign citizen calls freedom. The rest of us call it petulant, entitled narcissism. So, classic sovereign citizen argument number one. I'm here to challenge jurisdiction. What's their basis for such an argument? That they're not a US citizen, but something else, a state national or foreign national or even a diplomat, whatever their preferred self-bestowed title is. But here's the thing, there's no such thing as diplomatic immunity or any such exemptions in criminal matters. Even a foreign diplomat or non-citizen is subject to territorial jurisdiction in criminal matters. If you commit a crime in the township of Happyland, it matters naught that you're just visiting Happyland from Bullshitville or from France or even from fucking Mars. You're still subject to the laws of that location. That's territorial jurisdiction. If you're alleged to have committed said crime within that territorial jurisdiction, then the court has subject matter jurisdiction by virtue of the fact that the crime is alleged to have taken place within that territorial jurisdiction. So not only is their jurisdictional argument dead wrong, it doesn't even make sense. If it were true that sovereign citizens could successfully argue jurisdiction, then every court case would be a pretty short-lived affair, wouldn't it? Case number one, it turns out we don't have a jurisdiction over you, so you're free to go. Case number two, it turns out we don't have jurisdiction over you, so you're free to go. Case number three, it turns out we don't have jurisdiction over you, so you're free to go. Do you retards actually think that the legal system left such a loophole for you to just waltz straight through? Yeah, right. But paradoxically, how are you going to feel when some random criminal burns down your house? You take them to court and the court determines that they have no jurisdiction over the scumbag that destroyed your house, and he or she is allowed to just walk out, but smiles and gives you the middle finger as they do so, because that's what you're arguing for. So what was that? You want the law to apply to others that commit transgressions against you, but not when you commit transgressions against others. Classic narcissism right there. Personal jurisdiction. You might have noticed that our drug-dealing mate from the last video was going through the process of changing his name, and when that issue was addressed by the court, was claiming that he was not the person named in the indictment due to the name change. I mean, it's something a toddler might say, isn't it? This is the sovereign citizen's next go-to after the I'm not the name in full caps, some of my name is in lowercase idiocy that they've tried in the past, which may well qualify as the most idiotic sovereign citizen defence ever concocted. I was Johnny, but because Johnny is accused of a crime, I'm not Johnny anymore, I'm Roger now, and Roger isn't accused of a crime, only Johnny is. Oh, fucking bravo. Again, I would argue that even a sub-80 IQ moron could reason that that makes no sense. So why even go there? Unless you're actually trying to show the world that you're one of the stupidest people alive. I loved how Judge Fish showed the pathetic transparency of his actions with one simple question.
Your name is Michael Corleone Allegretti. That is your legal name.
That's not my legal name. I changed it.
Do you have documentation that you
Yes,
changed
I
your
do.
name? Please don't cut me off.
Oh, sorry.
Where did you get that documentation?
In Michigan.
Were these charges on?
I gave you all the documents, sir.
Were these charges already filed at that time?
Yes.
Indicative of someone who thinks they can avoid accountability by pretending to not be the person that they are. Sheer genius, and by sheer genius, I mean as dumb as fuck. So I think we've largely dealt with jurisdiction, territorial, personal and subject matter, even if not in a strictly legal manner, but just with simple common sense. You know, that common thing that sovereign citizens don't seem to have much of. Then we have the sovereign citizen stalwart, I do not consent, as if the court is going to say, oh sorry, if you don't consent, then you're free to go. Imagine a legal system where your consent to be prosecuted was required. You'd have a completely empty docket, I'd guess. Again, it's got to be one of the stupidest things you could say in court. How far do you idiots think you're going to get by saying things that are competing with each other to be the dumbest or the most untrue? Not very far, I'd say. Now one of my personal favourites, I wasn't driving, I was travelling. Okay, then if you're found guilty, we won't jail you for 90 days. We'll just incarcerate you for 90 days. Let me know if you think there's a difference because I use different wording. Now let's step outside of sovereign citizen stalwarts for a moment and turn to a comment I received on the last video. As a musician, I would have thought you would have an open mind. If there was no basis for sovereign citizens, why is it spreading? Legislation is created by people, elected by the general public, to make our lives better, supposedly, not create petty rules and regulations so we can be fined and imprisoned. I only responded to the if there was no basis for sovereign citizens, why is it spreading part. Measles is also spreading. You can use the spread of something to legitimise it, I suppose. I don't do that. I want things to spread because they're legitimate. I don't want things to become legitimate just because they spread. Susan replied, measles only spread when the pharmaceutical industry blah 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 went on about. My point wasn't about measles. You might be correct about measles. That wasn't the point I was making, Susan. Sorry, you missed the mark there. But later in that comment you say, most governments are corporations registered in New York. They have to abide by contract law, and this is what sovereign citizens are using against them. Sovereign citizenship doesn't need you go promote it to help it spread. The everyday activities of these governments and especially their police forces are doing an excellent job already. Most governments are corporations registered in New York. Ping! Her statements, though, about contracts helps me segue into this comment. Gary, do you believe you have any obligation to fulfil a contract you didn't freely enter into? In response, James Melton just lays it all out. I really respect this guy. He's actually pretty smart. I won't read the whole thing, but to paraphrase, he talks about John Locke's coining of the term social contract and how it's more of a moral premise than a legal one. Not being a legal contract, you don't get to apply contract law to it. I just want to skip back to Susan's comment for a moment and a reply he left there. He responded to her remark about the open-mindedness of musicians, but it was his closing comment that really struck me. Susan would not have got this at all. No one would have. He used the social contract premise he explained in that earlier separate comment and plugged it into a musical analogy he created that countered her non-related musical jab at me, while subliminally talking social contract. Excellent comment, man. One of the best I've read in ages. As a musician, I think you can understand that when you work together with others, you create a harmonious result that everyone can appreciate. And when you go your own way and obstruct what everyone else is doing, you foul up the song and you won't get invited to the next jam. So to summarise the theme of this video, do we as individuals respect and accept legitimate societal authority, or are we just a bunch of adult toddler anarchists? Am I saying these things because I'm pro-court or pro-government? Not at all. Just because I find sovereign citizen behaviour childish doesn't mean I'm all on board with everything our societal institutions do. Our mate Dave tried the Gary got the COVID jab and Gary loves his government daddy line. Yeah, you sound like a fucking baby, mate. If you hadn't floated in here in the last 2 minutes, you'd know I was as anti-vax as you could get during the COVID era. But anyway, I love you guys. You're all such heroic rebels, aren't you? No one tells me what to do. Like I said, narcissists. Funny how in your rush to tell the courts to not tell you what to do, you look up the nonsensical and non-legal ramblings of other sovereign citizen idiots and have them tell you what to do, even after repeated and utterly embarrassing failures. That's why you all follow the same script, using the exact same wordings, because you're doing what the scriptwriter told you to do. Duh! But anyway, being a proper law-abiding citizen who wants to follow the same rules as everyone else, have the same rights as everyone else, and be protected by those same laws like everyone else, and have respect for those ideals and the idea of the social contract being the one contract in life that you can't realistically opt out of, and accept the consequences of your actions like an adult rather than behaving like an entitled baby, that's the general idea. That's what most people do. Even if they don't understand or aspire to those ideals, they begrudgingly accept responsibility, pay the fine and move on. In other words, they behave like adults about it. If you don't want to do that, then hey, there's plenty of other planets out there.